It's a female Christ podcast, and this is our first official episode. So thank you for being with us. I hope so.
Yes, and today we have an interesting episode with a guest, and the topic of our episode, we were talking about healthcare system and all of its complexities. Marta also has her own business in the healthcare space. I was working with the healthcare space some time ago, and we decided that this is a topic we're going to dive in, and especially from two perspectives, the diversity in healthcare system, both on the side of clinical trials and actually who operates healthcare companies. And we will be more focused on the startup industries, and that's why we will also talk about the role of venture capital in the healthcare system and a lot of other very interesting things, because we have our guest today. And our guest is Brennan, who is a venture investor who works in a generalist fund, but Brennan specifically focuses on the healthcare sector. So welcome to Female Christ.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for inviting me, girls. I'm really happy to be here.
Most of the time we're actually talking about the healthcare, we're complaining. So today we're not going to be complaining, we're going to be like rationally thinking through a lot of different interesting topics.
I complain a little, so I'll try to pull that in.
You can start complaining from the side as investor.
We'll do a combination of complaining, rational thoughts, analytics, data, personal experiences. So our first topic for today is actually, sorry, Brendan, if you can talk a little bit about yourself and give a little intro, because I was like, oh yeah, we have to stick to the point and go straight to the topic.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Brennan Howley. I mainly invest in seed series and series A, but I am a bit of a generalist by nature, so if I see anything nice, I'll go pre-seed. I spend about 70% of my time investing in the healthcare space, which is pretty all-encompassing, whether it's diving into longevity, medical devices, diagnostic platforms, enterprise systems that'll help create a more efficient, easier process in the healthcare industry. And the other 30% of the time, I'm pretty much a pure generalist, looking at other things like consumer goods. But yeah, it's been a great experience so far, and yeah, been making some pretty incredible revolutionary investments that hopefully pay off someday.
Awesome. That's cool. And we just talked before the camera is on about the diversity of the whole investments and the whole startup stage. So is there any gap still exists between male and female startups? What do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, everyone hears kind of the talk about this, but a lot of startups are founded by a ton of coders and stuff, and those are typically engineer minds. And engineering is still primarily a male industry. I actually come from mechanical engineering by trade, so I know firsthand what that's like. And something that is a bit of a drawback of having a lot of similar minds working on the same thing is that you need this diversity of thought. You need ethical diversity or female-male counterpart diversity, because we do have different personalities, we do have different temperaments, we do see the world in different ways, depending on your background or your experiences. And when I'm looking for a good team to invest in, I want to see truly diverse teams, because that way they can problem solve with more minds instead of all the same minds being from Harvard or MIT. Sure, those people are great, but you get a little bit more diverse thought and experience through that.
That's a very good point, and I want to take us a little bit into the history, and maybe that would be, and just drop a couple of interesting facts on history of gender biases in healthcare industry, starting from clinical trials. And a lot of very, very popular drugs that we're using today, especially the ones that been with us for a couple of decades, were predominantly tested on men, and there are some as popular drugs as aspirin. There are also a lot of antidepressants and sleeping medications were mostly tested on men. like zolpidem and morphine and bupropion and Ambien and many, many more, like Lexapro. It's one of the most, widely used antidepressants. And the also like Prozac, pretty, big names in the in the drug on the drug scene. But the most crucial part and why it is dangerous, it's not only the dosages and that female and male body operates in different way, but also, for example, all of these drugs should be tested on how they interact with other substances, whether it's like nicotine or alcohol or any other things. And they're predominantly tested on men, so the alcohol intake, for example, or like nicotine intake or like any other substances that you, for example, maybe consume regularly, is made in consideration of male body. Again, on average, the body constitution, men and women are different, and how much alcohol you need and how much alcohol is consumed and how it reacts to and how body reacts to it it's very different. So this is kind of where we are. There is also an interesting
Can I add something?
Yes, sure.
While we've been talking, I've been just like thinking through that, I think this is like my assumption that women are actually just like having more medication on the list on a daily basis. For example, we're using oral contraception pills. And so that's supposedly that should be more studied for the women.
Yes.
Like also all this calming down medication or like a sleeping medication too. I think it's a bigger problem with the women than men.
Like statistically, for example, like insomnia, depression, if we're talking about very like severe stages, like the men are more, more impacted group, but we're talking about like low to moderate stages, like a lot of women impacted. But yeah, it's a really good point, because like when I found this data, I was so surprised. I was thinking that we will talk about it, but that is the thing of the past, for example. But actually, like aspirin was on the market for a very long time. They haven't retested it, It's just like as it is. And there was a piece of legislation in 1993 that actually, I can tell how it's called for anyone who is really, really interested. It's an NIH Revitalization Act of 1993 that
You can
actually...
read it later on the screen.
Yeah, we can, provide the information if anyone interested to go, dig down deeper. And it was the first legislation that actually mandated the inclusion, not even the equality of men and women in trials, but the inclusion, just inclusion in trials. And so there is even a story about the drug that was made for female sexual dysfunction, that it's I think it was mostly to the alcohol intake, how much you can intake alcohol with this drug, because it's kind of, you need to take it some time. Was done with the 98% of men in that group, although the drug was like purely for females. So there are even cases like that happened not that long ago.
Women are actually more like, thinking about saving their own data without sharing. I don't know why. What's the reason?
Like how would that happen if you're trying to source something for women? It's a pharmaceutical that only women are going to take. Why would they have only included men in the study?
Like, I know how it happened historically. Like, no, it's a big word. So historically, women were banned from clinical trials due to most of the time they, in certain age group that they were tested on, they were either pregnant or not most of the time, pregnant, breastfeeding. And also that was done because no one knew how, like, it kind of was done from the good intentions, because they didn't want to mess up female reproductive systems by testing drugs. So they were excluded, and that's why they were tested only on men. But that's kind of very...
But then the women are going to take it later, and we haven't studied it on women. So.
Yes, this is a very weird, like, this is again from what I found, like why it happened like that. But it's a very weird thing to do things. I think it also comes a lot from, if we go back to 60s, 70s, 80s, healthcare, there wasn't many, female doctors, or with any higher special education professions there till very recent years, they were mostly predominantly men until women, got better access to the education, to personal finance, because so that's kind of the cases.
What's funny? Sorry, just wanted to say that in the previous episode we just talked through that infertility studies, women has more history behind of it and more studies behind reproductive health, because people have been mostly studying a woman, and men fertility was 30-40 years ago the first study behind of it. So they didn't want us to fuck up our reproductive health, but they didn't pay attention to the men's one, and they didn't study that one.
That's
it's
also
epic.
Fact.
Okay, sorry,
but
yeah,
in early in the 1920s, 1930s, female orgasm was considered a hysteria,
A myth?
It's not a myth.
Oh, I know it's not a myth.
Yeah. So I know that also we talked again in the previous episode that there is very few, yes, we do study female reproductive systems, but that started to happen when more female doctors appeared, and that's just the thing. So we do have them, but they're we talked about that last time as well. So we don't know as much. We don't know as much, even reproductive age or reproductive health. We're just now starting to know things. And also, I think the information delivery is a big part of it. And this is where the question of diversity and not acceptance, but access. Yeah, that's the word. The access plays a huge role, because we had girls' dinners a few weeks ago, and we were talking about. Sorry, I will share this personal story. And we were talking about fertility and freezing our eggs. This is what girls talk about on their dinners, and there was a group of girls different age, and they said that you need to do it before you're 25. This is the best age. And then I came home and I looked it up.
Before around.
Yeah. So and I found the data that yes, if you want to freeze your eggs, the best age for them to to be able to use them is before 25 years old. And I'm great. That is fantastic to find out when you're past that age. It's even we have tools like this now that we can postpone, for example, pregnancy, or we can, some women can't get pregnant in the natural way, they need to do it in a little bit in controlled environment. And even that, we have this opportunity now, and most of the people don't know good age for that. Or something why when I've been to a doctor, female doctor recently, and I talked about I was thinking about this, is there a fertility clinic I can go? She didn't tell me that, even in conversation.
Yeah, okay, so it's pretty clear that a lot of people live day to day about their stresses, and it's easy to go not knowing what you don't know. So it's super upsetting to hear that we're only learning about these things when we go in and try to conceive. Because, how often are you thinking, when you go in and try to conceive, you're being taught all this stuff because it matters to you now. But what you said, it was beyond that age point. I had never heard of the 25-year-old this is the ideal time until the past year or two. And I'm also past that age. But this is stuff that should have been
different.
marketed.
For you is so it's from your 15 to 60 you can be safe there, as we talked yesterday about the fertility and other stuff, you know.
The female body is seemingly much more
complex. Exactamento. I just said it. It's just sad. But from other side, I'm happy about right now the situation in the U.S. overall, and probably in Europe, but mostly in the U.S. because mental health and health overall is the most invested, or like one of the most invested markets in overall all the markets, right? It's the third one in the U.S.
I don't know where it ranks, but it is certainly a big issue that most people experience at one point or another, whether it's due to infertility issues or due to stress at work or due to anything. And the COVID pandemic, we saw increasing rates of that too, as people tried to isolate or people were afraid of a virus. So that's a freaky thing.
I like to live in a country where people are in a mental crisis, because 1 in 5 Americans in 2022 struggling from some sort of mental health illness. But you can talk about this and nobody gonna judge. This is the thing. Because I just remember in Ukraine when I was telling to my friend that, oh, I'm kind of depressed. He was like, boy, you even don't know what depression is. And here you can be depressed and you can work on it. You can just share these things with people, and people are not going to judge because they do understand. They do have a clarity what around depression is. Or you can say, I do have ADHD. And people clearly do understand why you're doing too much moves around them, you know? I like the acceptance, I like the market, I like the solutions around it because it's interesting. It's just making you more educated. And with every year, it's like that.
Well, and just like anything, I think these things have become so common to where if the person is depressed or not, they know someone close to them that has been. So they know how to kind of talk through it or act chill. But if it was a new thing, that's a 1% of people thing, it's going to be just like anything else where some people are really closed-minded and don't know how to interpret it.
100%. And I think the thing here is whether, they just know how to diagnose, whereas in Ukraine, they don't know how to diagnose. They are not bothered too much about that. But I also have a question, kind of for discussion, is that what the impacts of healthcare being not diverse? What do you think? What are the huge impacts of, we already touched on, having similar minds doing the things, or drugs being tested only on men. But what do you guys think are very long-term?
For me, if any decisions, whether it's healthcare or not, are made in a closed group of similar minds, then you're very prone to ignorance and you're prone to move down any wrong decision pathway. But with healthcare especially, we're putting things into our body every day that has or hasn't been tested. And these we're finding out years down the line could be causing cancer, and then they're getting recalled. Female products, Femtech, for example, female minds care more about this stuff than a lot of just kind of the general man. And they know more about this stuff. They know how the bodies react to it. So,
or pretending.
You mentioned something about cotton.
There was a cotton tampon. There is some specific types of our skin inside of us, gonna tell this, that is actually very much tolerant for example, for latex or for cotton. So not everybody can use cotton tampons, and not everybody knows about that. So sometimes you're thinking that you do have some inflammation, but you're actually just giving to yourself your inflammation just because you're not questioning some products which didn't pass the SPDA though. Yeah,
because the products might have just been designed in a lab by a handful of engineers, and on the surface level they might just look like they would pass through the body, but
they are thinking that cotton is something good, right? Because it's just a cotton, so you can just put in whatever and it's going to be no result behind it. So I don't know, I think that everything should just go through the testing, through the double testing, triple testing during years and generations.
Well, I think also the biggest issue, if we touch that regarding female hygiene products, is not the issue is that they're dominant by huge companies. Even if they develop them, tampons been around for fucking decades, or pads. They, even if they develop by a not closed-minded, but just in a closed room, with the engineers, or that maybe were mostly
very
men.
Much evergreen, old schoolish companies, yeah.
Well, if it's a super large company that has a really great hold on the market and they're making a ton of money no matter what is their incentive to put a ton of money into R&D and to create a better product?
There
when
is no incentive.
most people are just living their life, they're buying the product, things are happening, things aren't sometimes, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the huge issue is that those are products you cannot buy, like you have to buy them. It's not like you buy them by, pure choice. It's like it's your body demands that you buy them. And the biggest concern, for example, if we're talking about personal hygiene, tampons, pads, they're not pure cotton. They're covered in like something to make it more smooth, which been already many trials show that it creates toxins that are like, that's why your body can go in that like toxic shock if you have it for too long and so on. And like, even though we know that, it's not like we've learned that, now we're going to go back and we're going to remake them. And there is a lot of startups in the space that try to make like better products. They die almost always because they just can't keep up with the competition. And I can tell you a good example, sorry, just a final thought on this one. There are cups, like menstrual cups.
Okay.
And those are
I don't even know if I know what this is.
You've seen it on
I'll
the
admit
market
it.
for sure,
No,
but
no,
this is
like-
just, sorry, continue.
like, let me discuss and before you show your personal opinion.
I showed it already by my face,
Yeah.
like.
So those are way more like, again, personal experiences, but I've heard from many friends of mine, I've read studies, they are better, they're less, like they're not made from cotton or anything, they're made from medical plastic, like medical silicone, which can go into your body like safely. You don't need to change it all the time. You put it in the morning, you get it out in the evening. You buy one, you can use it up to 2 years.
Whoa. And just rinse it.
Yeah, you in hot water, you rinse it in the hot water, like to kill like all the chemicals, and you
So
can
it's a
reuse
more
it.
green investment too. where you
It's
save
way
money
more
and-
like, it has no waste. It's if it fits you like anatomically, yes, then it's very convenient. You can't feel it. It's not piece of toxic product inside you that is like you can feel it, and you need to get it out. It's sometimes like painful, whatever. You don't have all this waste of applicators and plastic and everything. So it is a really good product. Maybe not like 100%,
But then the customer is only buying one or a few
In 2
of them
years.
and switching
Yes.
it out, and
yes.
that business model is
But they cost more. Like you can, and also they sell different complementary products. You can make it work if you want to. But now if you go and you look into any drugstore, like, or any gas station or any small shop, like a corner shop, there will be tampons, there will be pads, but there won't be these things. So this you can either order, or you can find them in big CVS's, like it's big pharmacies in the US. So you can find them there, but again, it's like big, like walls of like Tampax and everything, and then there is
How
like
about Michael?
hidden somewhere.
This is a real life live action example of a male being educated about the female system and kind of the male ignorance of this. I just had to look it up what it looked like, so now I understand. But I haven't seen them on the shelves. One point that you guys brought up earlier was these large companies, what is their incentive to innovate, and the smaller players coming to try to create a better product because they've maybe had bad experiences with the products that are on the market. And that's where venture money comes into play, right? They're small private companies trying to make a change, and it's really hard to get to scale up or to market or whatever it is, to build a team. And that's where these founders reach out to us, venture investors, to review them, help them leverage our network, and obviously provide capital so that they can scale and they can start competing.
I like how you put
scale.
capital in the last play. Like, we're coming to you for cash.
Exactly.
We're coming for cash.
Cash and
And
advisory
network.
services and everything, yeah.
So actually, like, if we're talking right now about money and VCs, so what's you think the VC role in promoting healthcare right now? Because with the growth, how many? I don't remember the statistics, but you just like answer, please.
Yeah. So the healthcare system feels extremely flawed right now. Many different countries have many different large issues, and in the US, for certain, as kind of a cost and time sink, the healthcare system is one of those flawed, outdated, inefficient systems. So, I mean, they all have their own enterprise systems integrated. The data between devices doesn't talk too much. There's a lot of manual intensive labor that the physicians and nurses are recording on paper and stuff. So we're seeing physician burnout. I heard a stat at a conference that for every job filled in a hospital, there are still 2 open. And my youngest brother's a nurse at MGH, so I do understand how hard he works and how like bandwidth it is. And we've all had these experiences where we've gone in for an appointment and we've had to wait and wait and wait. And it's like, I'm missing work for this, and now I'm just getting more and more stressed out about it. And then the doctors, they're so overburdened, they're not able to provide you that clear-minded care in some cases. I obviously don't want to slander doctors or anything, and they're great people doing great work. But how do we really revolutionize this system? And this is where the larger companies are maybe complacent. They have a hold on the industry, and they also have lobbying money behind it. And you need these. It's hard to shift and work fast when you're a large company. No matter how many employees you have, there are just so many deeply ingrained systems there and processes and regulation. And the cool thing about these small companies coming up is like if they can get some money flowing, they can pivot their whole business model. They can pivot, they can trial different methods, or like, okay, is this actually working for the customer, or are there other things here? And what really excites me in the healthcare industry, sorry girls, I guess I'm going off.
Yeah,
trying to reel us
Can
back
you
into the
just like
conversation.
make one rule? Can you just like not say sorry? Because we're here together and we
Yeah,
just
no
like
sorries.
oh, no sorries. Thank you.
But yeah, what's really exciting me is like some of these advanced platforms that are improving diagnostic capabilities. So instead of having this massive insurance bill because you're being operated on by large equipment and there's a whole queue in line for when you can be seen through that equipment, are there smaller, more affordable devices that can treat you even more accurately or at a fraction of the cost with rapid feedback? One of the companies I'm super excited about, shout out to Ping, the CEO of Voxy. Voxy Health has created a handheld platform. They're pushing through FDA clinical trials right now. They just oversubscribed their seed round, which is nice to hear. And in today's kind of fundraising climate, this company has gone above and beyond fundraising more than they expected. But they've
That's
essentially,
awesome.
yeah, they've essentially functionalized graphene, which is it's like a wonder material. It's a great technology that was discovered many years ago, and we weren't really sure what to do with it. Super conductive, super strong. They've functionalized that so that you can actually read your volatile organic compounds. So in the age of data, to think we're expelling data constantly through our breath, through just existing, and we're not capturing any of this. You breathe onto this platform for 1 minute because it takes the blood to circulate through the body for 1 minute, and now you can be screened for lung cancer is the first market they're going after, which is obviously a massive thing. And I'll get into standards in a second, but then you will eventually be able to go into your doctor, quickly breathe on this thing. It's effortless, it's non-invasive, you're not pulling blood, you're not sending it to a lab and losing some accuracy there, but you're breathing onto a platform and being screened for a handful of different cancers. So catching early and often. There are many issues with our healthcare systems today, not speaking of the value-based care systems, but speaking of kind of the general majority of American healthcare systems, they are reactive. So you go in when you're sick, you go in when you're feeling like something's wrong, or you go in for your checkup if you're a responsible person. I mean, you can miss it though, you know, you might be busy.
My mom is a doctor, I didn't know about it.
And what's great is like there's this whole tidal wave of value-based healthcare systems where you pay a set fee or something, and they don't want to see you again because within that year, you can go back as many times and get treated, which incentivizes these companies not to have you back in, not to keep paying more bills, but instead to stay out of the healthcare system, to catch things early and often, which is why diagnosis is a great play there.
Preventive medicine. And I always like to think that, you know, like large corporations are like oil tanks, like huge tanks that are like you know, they are very powerful, but it takes like long time to just like shift a little bit, whereas like startups are like speedboats. They have a lot less fuel, but they move faster.
Yeah.
Also, I really do like that you mentioned the data in this context, because I think that we're going to have even more and more problems because we have more and more data. As more data we're collecting, as more data we're processing, as more things we're like seeing as like a gap for building the product on the top of it, or service, or company, or whatever. Like we're keeping building, and people like actually just like solving the problems of the people.
And we're learning about the issues of the products that are already out, and we're finding out that maybe the sunscreen that's been our favorite that we've been using for years needs to be recalled because of cancer or whatever. But yeah, it seems like almost at least once or twice a week I'm finding out, oh, you don't want to drink from this tea bag, or you don't want to use this product, or oh, this food is not healthy for you, or whatever. And it's like, oh, just another thing to worry about, another thing to be stressed about. Like,
yeah, and also the interesting thing that we talked with you today about genetics. So I'm so happy that right now we do have all these companies who just like actually studying your background on your family and basing your genetic, because right now you actually know what happened before and what can influence your cancer, or you have problems with lungs, or whatever, like any kind of allergies, because it's all like some of them genetically. So you can just do it for like $70. You're gonna have the whole story of your family in one. Mm-hmm. And of course they're sharing data with China, as we know.
yeah, whether it's hacked or it's sold or whatever.
So speaking of that, what is the venture capital role in the healthcare system? How you see it? If there, you know, any large companies that are venture backed come to mind that are not already as startups but actually like big corporations, or like what do you see on the scenes of healthcare investing right now?
Well, most companies have to start out somewhere, and have to start off with some of these venture dollars. My past employer, Insulet Corporation, was venture backed many, many years ago. There was, some of the largest companies that come to mind were venture backed. I don't want to misspeak here, but you're seeing a lot of like, a few years ago there was a big wave of like telehealth, like how do we reach more people at a fraction of the cost? All of those that you have downloaded on your phone were definitely venture backed.
Yeah, I back in Ukraine I worked with telehealth startup, and that idea of kind of diversifying and giving more access of that like first line of healthcare is just going to the GP or nurse practitioner and getting your labs or like just general concerns, and then they kind of say, oh, you need to go there, or you need to take this test, so it could be done digitally. And I know there's like a couple of huge telehealth platforms in the US. They're all venture backed. Some of them are already there. I don't remember the names.
One Medical is a massive one that was acquired by Amazon. So they're a large player. I have it downloaded. I've used Lemonade Health because I truly hate like wasting time going to the doctor and just to get like sometimes feedback that isn't personalized to me.
At all.
So many questions can just be answered. So they found a really nice white space here. And this is a great example of an entire market that was, sure the market size was big, but this created a market because now you can reach a lot of people that live too far away from hospitals or rural communities, or that might not be willing to go into the doctor because of their costs, or maybe their company isn't providing them great insurance, but now they can afford it because of these micro interactions. And then if they catch something that's more serious, then they can go in and make better decisions. But it keeps people at their desk working, it keeps people with their families, and we just want to live life, you know?
I like going to the doctor when I need, because I like usually
You decided for yourself, not because you need to.
No, because I usually like when I go to a checkup, I also try to do all the lab tests on the like same day, so it makes sense. But then when I have, for example, follow-ups with my doctor after have already done labs and stuff, I love it to be online, because you basically, they already have like all of your tests and results, and they, you know, going to walk you through it or diagnose you better or prescribe you something. They don't really need to see you in person. So
Oh yeah, okay.
I
makes sense.
do
Optimizing.
love like this option as well, because I also like a hospital that is not near my house. It's not like super far, but it's still like, you know, you need to drive like for half an hour. So like I go there when I need to, when I can do my labs and stuff.
Half an hour
and
is not bad.
in the late terms, definitely not, but still.
I know there's a lot of startups like having the search and recommendation like based on your location, and if you're just like having a nice insurance with the good providers, they're gonna have like a million of things around the house. I'm happy about this. I'm like really happy that we're living in the States. Sorry, you're from here and you're Ukrainian, so this is like the whole discussion around like what we get used to in Ukraine by the quality wise and the way how they treat you, the way how they care about you, and here, because a lot of prejudice coming when you're just moving here, because you hear all the time from people who are already here who just like moved from different countries, then the American medicine is like kind of like high prices but low quality, but it's not true. But we're gonna talk later about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's also very, you know, comes a lot to personal experiences and like what providers you have. But generally, yes, I do agree. And I think like it's a little bit, you know, there is no perfect system. It doesn't exist anywhere. They're all like built on some legacy from past generations that they could be bigger or smaller, but they're still there. Like you mentioned Ukraine, we have an issue with the Soviet Union and the like medicine of Soviet Union. Some of that was really good in terms of like drugs,
COVID vaccine. Sorry.
like drugs production, and you know, they like some of the most popular drugs we use today, like from Citramon, like from from because they had actually an industry, a pharmaceutical industry, whereas like when the Soviet collapsed, you know, it just like some countries didn't have it at all. Some tried, some had like outdated, but then there are some ridiculous things from Soviet age and like Soviet doctors, and I will say like out loud like many times as I can, because I hear it sometimes with from like, you know, people now in Ukraine. Like for again, it will be about female health. Like for example, the UTI, the urinary tract infection, or like it called cystitis as well. Doctors in like in Soviet Union era, and still now it's like a tale goes in that, oh, you just been sitting on something cold and you have like a pussy cold, you know, but it's not. It's an infection caused by your internal bacterial disbalance that could be caused by many things. It's not directed strictly to sex, but it like, you know, it directed a lot to like how do you hydrate, how often you go, you know, to pee, and like there is like all sorts of things. But then in our medicine, doctors like, oh, you've been just sitting on something cold. Like, what the fuck?
Back in Ukraine?
Yes.
Oh no.
There's a lot of rules
go
which is
too
like
long
not
without
backing by any
UTI
like
check.
scientifically proven facts, you know? That's why people like, I don't know, if you cut yourself, just like spit on the leaf and just put it, you know, it's gonna be everything fine. So there's like a lot of different
There
things.
are
which
a
is
lot
like,
of things, but it's the same thing. But in the same time, like my experience in the UK and the US, usually if something is nothing serious is with you, they're just like, oh, here's an Advil, you know, or like a alternative to Advil. Like they prescribe like just the most basic, like this is an aspirin. And now, like, if any doctor prescribes me an aspirin for something like general, I will say it was never tested enough on women. I'm not going to take it. You know?
Yeah, teach them a lesson.
Yes. But I just wanted to make a topic because a point that I think we came to the point, again, because of a lot of startups in the scene that kind of, we have a lot of apps that are somewhere in the middle between lifestyle and healthcare, like, you know, calories intake, you know, wellness
category.
Yes, like wellness guide, that it could be damaging from one side, and from another it kind of pushes us to learn about our health. So I think one of the things that people are like very, you know, like, complaining a lot about medical system, but it's also a personal responsibility to like learn, like to at least have some basic knowledge. I don't say you need to go and get a medical degree, but to have a basic knowledge, like you should be able to read your labs. You should be able to understand,
Totally
you know, how certain food and how your body reacts, what, like, you know, what is your sleeping cycles, what some like, you know, at least on this level, like when I really love, sorry, it's a little bit off topic, but I'm reading a lot about this right now, so I'm going to.
She's a biohacker.
Yeah,
that's nice.
I'm a little biohacker, and so basically, when our body is working on the circadian rhythm, like there is a cycle, and not only our whole body, every organ in our body has certain time when it releases either certain secretions or hormones or elements into our body for certain purposes.
And this has been engineered over forever.
Yeah, that's been forever. There was even an experiment when they put a dude into the cell with no windows in time. Fantastic experiment. Just very humane. But
Send it to me later.
Just great.
Yeah,
Link in the. There's gonna be a link.
Yeah. and the person knew, like, and he was going to bed, and like he was sleeping, waking up, and having food, and like he was provided with food and everything, and they asked him to like determine how long he been there, and it, like, he said he was longer than he actually was there, because he like lost the count of like how many nights, but he was going to bed actually like in the evening, waking up in the morning, roughly same time.
His body was keeping him on the
His
time.
body, like, clock was keeping him. And also I'm just talking about, like, also there is another way of, you know, like directional wellness. It's, you know, being more productive and staying more productive, like motivate yourself, discipline, and all of that. But there's core things in the body, like your melatonin, that should release somewhere between 9, 10, 11 p.m. And then, you know, you fall asleep. And then if that went okay and you haven't like disrupted it, then when you wake up, you know, around like 6, 7 a.m., you get cortisol intake and then dopamine intake. And this is why, you know, you wake up, and that's why you're like motivated to do things, or you want to do things. So, like, to all the productivity podcasts, if you haven't had those things, if those things don't work in your body like regularly and, you know, optimally, you don't need to hack your body, you don't need to like kind of, you need it to work in an optimal like at optimal level. If that works, you want to do things, you can do things, you have energy, you kind of can plan better, you can execute better. But no matter like amount of motivational videos or even discipline works if those things don't work correctly. You can, you know, you can really force yourself like 1 or 2 times, but consistency builds on actually your body working in optimal, you know, pace. And we're designed for brain activity, so there are like, you know, good time for doing things and so on.
But also we're designed for changes, and we are designed for flexibility, because like people, when in the moment when they didn't have any electricity or whatever, they had just the sun, they've been like depending on the sun. After they discover fire, and they've been with the fire until the last person being taking care of the fire. So afterwards they start sleeping after 9. And right now we do have electricity.
But we don't have it for long in terms of
we
evolution.
didn't. I'm just like saying about the big jump on like that's what you said, that we need just to take control of our body and understand what our body needs it without this like hacking things. Because I think if you're thinking that you're good because you watched like a YouTube video of Huberman and this is something what you would like to do, it's one question. But the other question is like, you should always follow in your body. When you're yawning, you're obviously tired, you need to go sleep. And okay, it's 10 p.m. for me is good for sleeping at 10 p.m. I like that because I'm waking up always at 6. Like, this is my clock. I respect that. Respect your body. Yeah.
There are many points that I want to start making now, and they go back like many minutes.
Yeah, go on.
You started by talking about the apps and how they're tracking and they're helping you figure out yourself. And that is brilliant because you don't know what you don't know. And sure, you can watch Huberman or you can watch whatever influencer, but how credible is everyone? I love Huberman. He is, I would say he's pretty credible, you know? So that's someone that you can listen to, in my opinion. But a lot of people will try these different things. So just fast from water or whatever for so many days. And tracking your data on the apps, that can lead to better understanding of what works for you and what doesn't, which just leads to a healthier, better lifestyle. And can also, having that data can then be forwarded back to your doctors so that you can have more personalized medicine. Because something that's really exciting me right now is like individualized, personalized medicine. And we're at an interesting intersection right now where a lot of that can't really be done without AI and without being able to read these large amounts of data from very diverse backgrounds. So differences in ages, differences in genders, differences in lifestyles, ethnicities, you name it. So that's something that's interesting. And then even the same two sisters can have different reactions to the same exact treatment, you know? So
100%.
this is a very big opportunity in my opinion, and it can lead to better outcomes.
100%. Yeah, that's why I think we also need to kind of know ourselves, because we're not there yet with the medicine to deliver personalized healthcare, although we will talk about this a bit more. But then we can kind of provide a bit more personalized approach to our health by ourselves. You know, like
Absolutely.
what things work better. You know, you can kind of feel it. You can also pay attention, because what you do, you know, you pay attention, you collect data, you reflect, you change the approach. Like even like with, for example, some supplements, what I do, I take it for some time. If I see like something, you know, changing, working, doesn't working, then, you know, I stop or I continue.
Trialing and error.
Yes.
At least you're out there trying it, you know?
Yes.
But this is us. This is our approach. You need to think before you're gonna do something.
Absolutely.
It's us. Like, we're exploring everything. We're reading every single article before you're gonna, I don't know, even start using some drugs or a medication or even prescription medication.
What do you mean? Even before starting using some drugs, and whenever
Considering that.
Non-alcoholic wine, by the way.
Yeah,
It really is.
whatever, you know, like if I'm taking any medication, I go and I read like some studies first, and the second thing I do, Reddit, and then like
Reddit's great.
I'm just following
Great.
a million of
Living
different
Reddit.
pages.
At
Like
least
every
just
single
asking
topic I
questions.
was like curious about in US is better on Reddit. Always.
Reddit is it's just like my fucking holy grail for information. But this is where you get, like we talk about like personalized care, and this is where you get very like honest experiences of people, you know, like by taking some drugs. Obviously, again, and this is very interesting. We brought up Reddit. For example, I take some, you know, I've taken some medications for sleep, and then I go on Reddit, and I have like 30 different like experiences from 30 different people.
Yeah,
like
because
taking
everyone's
the same thing.
different, or people
Yes, 100%. This is like so interesting, and we like, if there is a way to collect this data and like you still, any type of data, even if it's very, you know, dispersed, you can still kind of structure it in bigger like groups, So that would be very interesting.
Yeah, and kind of somewhat along that lines, but also somewhat pivoting is we're humans, we're flawed. We're not always, there are some disciplined people out there and there are a lot of undisciplined people out there, or people that won't take exactly like the medicine when they're supposed to. And these cause different experiences as well.
Yes.
Human error is a massive thing. So Insulet, the company I used to work at, developed the closed loop insulin pump where they partnered with Dexcom and now they're actively monitoring. So that removes the human error from the equation. You're no longer jabbing yourself with the needles and then calculating, oh, I ate this apple, now I need to adjust, or oh, I ate this candy or this cake, whatever it is. So it's really cool to see products out there that just remove human error from the equation. There's a company that I'm looking at right now called Toramix, and they're pre-seed, so super early.
What do they do?
They're essentially creating like the smallest insulin pump
Okay.
using nanofluidic technologies. It's a NASA. The CEO was from NASA, and it's very advanced. It's much smaller. Instead of wearing it for a pump for 3 days or having something external, you're now wearing this for 7 days, and now the cost per component is exponentially. The COGS go down exponentially because you're able to get that much more use out of every single component. And you're also wasting a lot less material and wasting a lot less shipping cost. And now you can provide the customer with not only a better experience, but a cheaper price because the COGS are just that different. So yeah, eliminating human error from the equation, I mean, just, we all mess up, right? I do it too.
True, but I'm so happy again about the market of US because I just remember all these startups 10 years ago talking about just being, I don't know, progressive, being dynamic, being super tech, and right now it's more about accessibility and about like responsibility for the nature even. I don't know, everything around plastic and everything around like a care about something, like a human, like everything is just so, what's the right word for that?
ESG, I guess, if you're talking.
What's the sophisticated?
It does get really sophisticated, and there are always so much trade-offs
Of
between
course,
what
there's
you
a
want to
million
care
lot of
about.
different, but right now I'm thinking through what I was focusing before, because like I'm coming from the ads and marketing business, and I remember I was always like watching these commercials of the Super Bowl because like it's for me it's something like a marker of what I should just think through by the strategies and go-to-market strategies of the different brands. So then being about like a robots, cosmic flights, going to Mars, being like creating a rocket, or just in AI as well. When it was just like a first versions of AI, but right now is everything is just so human-centered, so like caring, finally, and it's just I don't know. I think it's good. I think the planet is going to kind of like the right direction right now. I would like
I
to
feel
think
it
so.
too, in some aspects, and I'm sure I can complain about so many other aspects that would not be featured in this.
So the healthcare
podcast.
is the one of them.
No, we're moving in the right direction there, I would say, for sure. To your point about Reddit, it's funny you mentioned that. I was like kind of over here laughing at myself because I am that type that like is always Googling everything, like WebMD, like that's almost like a meme at this point because WebMD will always say like, oh, potential, you might be dying. But yeah, Reddit, like I find out these things and then I'm trying to like, I just naturally ask the doctors a lot of questions and try to understand like if they're caring or like where they're coming from here. And they're always like, a lot of them hate that I've done my diligence or like tried to look into different things because I am not a doctor. And in some cases I might be misdirecting myself, but at least I feel like I have a little bit more control and, you know, can question or whatever.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should, 100%. But I also read a lot of very fun stories from Reddit.
Well, I do have it
And,
like all by the hashtags on the startups I'm working on. So
And regarding like everything going to be more humane and care and everything, I partially disagree because I think like maybe it sounds very, I don't know, cynical, but I do believe that changes happen like in a good direction only when there is a group of very powerful people with a lot of money that actually this is like to their advantage. So no one is going to get rid of plastics just, because of, until we have a really better solution that could be as profitable and as low cost.
You're saying because there's just too much control, there are too many lobbying dollars, the system's there, they're going to be able to push down on some of the other changes?
Yes, just in general. I think like we're going definitely in some good directions, but then it's still a very long journey because of the all the legacy we have in the systems we have, in materials we use, and so on and so on. So
because sorry.
Go ahead. I got next.
I'm thinking that just because right now technologies are giving our, as we said, so much data, we can process it so much faster than before, so we can just make more scalable and good solutions. We can just optimize processes, we can just make them accessible, and everything is moving in a very clear, right direction. I think we're not gonna die soon, I hope. Let's say that with this planet, because humans are more human-y than 10 or 20 years ago right now. I feel it, even with all technology and with all AI.
I wouldn't have known because I was just a kid playing in the sandbox or playing sports, but I think you're absolutely right about some of the developments here, and unfortunately such a bad event of COVID did help expedite some of these investments into the healthcare space. It shed light on kind of our inefficiencies and the burnout of physicians and everything. And now we're seeing, instead of just the same old tech or software companies being the big investments that everyone hypes up. If you think about the largest companies that come to mind right now, like Netflix has been one of the massive players, like social media platforms like Meta, what is this world? Do we really just disassociating from our world and staring at our phones and relaxing? Is that really all we need to be putting our money towards? Let's actually create change in the healthcare system, and thank God a lot of money is now shifting towards that. To your point earlier, let's see if I can find it again. The legacy systems. So they're really, really difficult to disrupt. These are big, complex issues, big, complex systems, and the human body and mind and whatever it is very complex. Yeah. But if you can break into this, in my opinion, very disruptible industry, if you can actually push through that, then you're going to become part of the legacy. And now you got them. So the enterprise systems, they're in there for a while. The LTV to CAC is pretty good, and you can just, if you can penetrate that, then now you're in it and you have a great grasp. And it's hard for these big healthcare systems to push in new equipment or push in new enterprise softwares or whatever it is. But once you're there, you're there.
But just a point on that one is, I don't know how it is in healthcare system, but I've studied financial systems for quite a while, and at some point they were very in the US especially, and in the UK they were very popular so-called middleware products like Plate, for example, that just built in between the old legacy infrastructure that cannot be changed like this, and if it's working, just let it work. Then there is a middleware, and then there is an interface, the last part of the consumer interaction that is built on that, because you can't rebuild the system to make that interaction better or more efficient, but you can build a middleware that can then make another layer on top of that will deliver this more modern, personalized or better experience to the end user of the product. So I don't know if there is anything like that in healthcare. If you have came across something like that, please let us know.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Innovation from just stacking up versus the fast-moving innovation of startups. When you were kind of talking like that, I started questioning fintech. And I was not an investment banker before moving to VC, so I don't want to speak too much on fintech, but I think about all of these new fintech platforms, and are they really just new kind of software updates to old existing platforms.
Yeah,
Most of them.
optimizing.
Even like digital banks, for example, they mostly run on the licenses of existing huge banks. Like, so if there is like, I know in Ukraine there is a Monobank. It's a very big digital,
that's the
super
best.
the best. Like, you know, from the consumer perspective, like consumer digital banking. But
Yeah.
then it runs on the license of Universal, which is a all large bank.
What I think one of the oldest, right? From the time of independence of Ukraine, from 1991.
I think
I think
so.
it's one of the
I think
oldest.
it's so. But that's
And
I
for
don't.
you to have that reaction, if we could replay that scene of her saying, "Oh, they're the best," I've never heard anyone say that about a bank.
Yeah,
This
there
is
are
one
the
of the
best.
best banks. When I'm showing even my card to here in American banks, they like, whoa, it doesn't have a number and your name. And I was like, yeah, because also CVV is dynamic. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
The dynamic? I was like, yeah, 30 minutes. And here's the app. The app is so cool. I was like,
Wow.
of course, we're about the protection. I think Ukraine gonna, like, after the war gonna finished, we're gonna be the second Israel in the financial system and a system of protection. But this is not this topic, not today.
Yes, and also since we already touched quite a lot on personalized medicine, is that personalized medicine is a solution to what we have, and to what extent, so kind of my question is to what extent we need just to modernize the healthcare system because it's just a little bit outdated, and like create more bandwidth with better efficiencies, and to what extent we actually do need a lot of personalization, and like what should go first, and how does that look?
Are we
like
talking worldwide or US?
I think like
US?
Maybe
I think
in
we
general.
can in general
Okay.
with more examples from the US, because we discussed it a little bit off camera that that there is no perfect system. I've lived in England, so I encountered some of the NHS. We're both from Ukraine. You're from the United States.
I've only lived in the U.S.
Yeah, so I lived also a little bit in Israel, and I haven't seen anything perfect. I haven't seen anything like being super personalized, unless you maybe go to a very, very expensive private small clinic, like something like that. So yeah, I think we can talk more in general, but just with some more examples.
It might remove the need for those outdated clinical trials, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even worked in an industry where we were trying to validate products that would need FDA approval, and I've helped push several of those through. But sometimes you put a lot of time and money into a clinical trial and just have to completely revamp it, because you look into, okay, this doesn't seem like what we thought it would be, and you notice that it was old women who didn't have much else to do during their day. So they went and they signed up for this, got a little bit of shopping cash or whatever it was, but their skin, for example, is going to be reacting different than a skin of a different ethnicity or of a different age, So yeah, personalizing medicine, personalizing it all could really kind of remove some of those errors. And I'm really just excited about the data and how we can move forward with that. And all the diseases.
Collecting, protecting, and giving outcomes.
Yeah, there are so many like kind of super small diseases that are like really big issues in people's lives, and we don't have enough data to do much on that. And
just to your point, like again about the US, for example, healthcare system, I think it's really good in treating something big. Like if you have an injury or you have some like disease that is pretty, strong. Yeah. So it's expensive healthcare system, but they have here like one of the best medical devices, one of the best doctors, because they are high paid, they are more incentivized they are upskilling and all of that. So you're good in that, but a lot of times our problems with health are not, and thanks God, are not like a major injury or major like some disease. There are something like, oh, I don't have enough energy, or I can't sleep well, or my digestion is not like really good, or I have persistent headaches, or like I have some maybe like, you know, some skin sensitivities, something like overall that is making your life quality like worse. Maybe not, it's maybe not a major thing, you're not going to die from it, but it reduces the quality of your life dramatically. And this is where I think like conventional healthcare medical system is like useless, to be honest, because they're not, and this is those type of treatments where you need a bit more personalized, you know, care to look like, even when you do your lab test, the gap is like from here to here is like norm, but maybe for you like the norm is like should be here or should be here and not like this because you're like a smaller girl or a bigger guy or something like that.
It's interesting point also because like in US it's all a bit more progressive. For example, sometimes you can get this just like a story of the EHR, like electronic health document for all your diseases, so you can just like work on it, you can understand what's actually happened, so you can just like personalized, like having personalized solution at the end. Or even with this like all genetic and genomic testing what we talked before as well, so you can just like have all the solutions for you. And also I'm about protecting data, but from other side I would share like a part of it for at least just having the success to analyzing it and to understanding the patterns, which AI can work with too. Because like we all are on patterns. There are a million of human beings that are having the same problems like as you. As more you're just going through this, as more you're understanding it, and as more like a small diseases you have, so you have like something to fight with.
Yeah, and with the understanding of blockchain now, we're able to kind of decentralize that, and you're able to keep it safe and protect it from hackers and everything. So that's another really cool intersection that we're at right now. And it'll be really nice to see how that moves forward.
Yeah. Blockchain has some real...
Somehow that came into conversation.
Yes, we haven't even planned that at all.
Before I even started the startup, I've been thinking when I'm going to be storing data, and I will start exploring Web3 because I think it's super powerful and it's going to be super powerful soon. That's a thing, and that's a thing we need to explore also. Because I'm about protection, but also I'm about sharing something that might help people to survive and to live a long life, happy under 100 of years.
For the greater good, like how do we ensure that there are no more hackings? If you go on TechCrunch right now and look up healthcare, some of the first things that come up, or if you think about like, if you type in like personalized data, some of the first things that come up are, there was a series of hacks on health system and all this data is away. Or like 23andMe, where like, we gave them our DNA, they told us our background. For someone like me, it was pretty easy to know it without taking that stuff. But now my DNA is stolen, and whose hands are they in, you know? And what will they do with that in the future?
I'm just thinking while you're talking that, I'm like, I'm sorry, I have really lack of imagination in terms of like, if you got the medical data of someone, I only can think about like good things you can do about it.
Like kids. Sorry,
like,
this is the first thing.
Like you're just thinking so optimistic.
No. It's obviously really bad, but I was like going in my head through like scenarios where you can use it like to really bad cause, and I'm like, I think like the only thing that came to my mind is like if you sell this data to large corporations and then, or like to like insurances, and then they are like more biased towards who they hire or who they give insurance to. But you know, those companies that are insurance should not buy data from hackers, I guess. Or like, I don't know, like what do you, if
what
you
can do, think about COVID. Think about like you just like having a data of a million of people, and you're like, okay, so I'm gonna right now develop the virus, we're gonna kill all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time, and you're like...
You can wipe out masses if you truly understand unique qualities about different backgrounds. So that is a super, like bioweapons, you know? It's
like a weak points in your body. It's just like clearly showing where you're not protected, where your immune system is lacking. Or like, I don't know, maybe your digestion, like maybe your What's the last COVID generation thing was about?
Some letter
no
far
idea.
down
It's
the
about-
line, it's probably still going.
It's about the problem with the breathing, but this is something which is a problem for a long time, not just about like.
Losing smell.
Yeah, this is something about the breathing. I don't remember where was it. I just remember that I read the article, but whatever. Pandemic like lasts long, but right now it's not here. I hope.
I haven't even thought about like bioweapons and stuff. I'm sorry. I was
We're
like,
sorry. It's good that you're not
I'm like,
thinking
I'm
about
like,
that.
yeah, but you can only do so many good things with that. I'm like, if anyone gets my medical data, okay, I have like a fucking anemia or like low iron. Like, what are you going to do with that?
Well, you can use it for identity thief. You can use it anything like from a person, like their DNA or I don't know, the fingerprints, or like you can use it for some financial operations even. If there's something like a two-step verification, whatever, connected to your body, you can do it. There's a million ways you can just like actually use your data. I've been thinking through it because like I used Ancestry and I used 23andMe too.
What is that?
23andMe is like this test, like genetic test,
I haven't
where it's
done
just
that.
sharing your DNA.
Yeah, I used it. All my data is stolen now. How upsetting. Do I get my money back? I mean, I could fill
And
out
what,
like
what does it tell you? Like your ethnicity?
it tells you where you're from. So my dad's 100% Irish, so I knew straight off the bat I got 50% of that from him. Funny enough, my mom bought me and my two younger brothers, who all look the same, by the way, all these kits. I was like, Mom, we could have just saved money and bought one of them.
Oh, this is hilarious.
But
They all
whatever.
similar, really.
So,
Like,
so we all spit in it, and yeah, 50% Irish, like 30% German, 20% British. It was easy to tell. Like we thought my mom was maybe a bit more of a mutt than she was, but yeah, just German and British from her.
I've been very curious about.
So
that
you're a
woman as well.
European,
Yes.
100% European.
Yeah.
Is there a thing as an American DNA? I think it's not.
Native American.
Well, you know.
Yeah, but that's our
Definitely.
country. We were founding on immigration, and we've all gone through different waves of hazing as you're kind of like the new folk in.
Yeah, 100%.
Also, you said before that you think that pandemic actually like highlighted some gaps in public health, right? You said about the public health. What's about the digital health? Like how COVID actually pushed us into the era of consistent progress against like what was before?
I forget when those apps really started making a push, if it was before COVID or not. I wasn't on the
2021.
venture, but 2021. Well, I mean, it helps with the bandwidth of physicians. You know, now doctors can, or any physician can see someone within 15 minutes about a minor thing instead of them getting bogged down by the process of filling out the forms, waiting in the lobby, taking a doctor's time. So just being able to reach a larger market here has that potential. Even though you're only paying a fraction of the cost, why not serve more people?
Yeah, 100%. And when I worked with telehealth startup, that was in I think 2021, and I worked in energy industry at that time, but we were selling electricity, and we wanted to sell more services with electricity as a utility. And you know, checking your health should be a utility, as you just should do it like regularly online, just like a quick checkup. So we've been working on some integration there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So also, sorry, I can't. This meme in my head, you know, like who brought digitalization to my company? CEO, CTO, COVID. You know, I think like 100% medicine,
Yeah.
but also like every company like went straight remote. Everyone, you know, like learned how to use like video calls and everything. Like
It was a perfect time. I loved it so much. Like, just loved it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I loved that time as well. I was just like sitting home, working a lot, ordering nice deliveries, and
I was one of my only friends that had to be in office like pretty much nonstop.
Oh,
So
sorry.
commuting 9 hours a week in office all the time. Everyone else was like, they'd go on a ski trip and then they'd be able to work from the mountains, from the condo for a little bit, but also be able to get to explore that town and then hit the mountains the first thing on Friday or take time off. And it was, yeah, I don't know. I didn't necessarily love that time, but
You did go to the office.
I was in office pretty much nonstop besides the first maybe 2 months. And during that, there was a lot of strict control in the Cambridge, Somerville, Boston area. So I actually got a little bit of ski mountain time, but the ski mountains were closed. I was just up there alone with my ex at the time, and I would throw the skis on my back after work and try to race against the sunset to get fresh tracks in. It was a nice memory. I got a little bit of that in, so it was a great workout.
And that winter I was in Mexico.
I think like in Ukraine, for a long time you couldn't like. I just recalled that why I didn't go anywhere because we couldn't go anywhere for some pretty long period of time.
Yeah, airports were closed, or airports were
even
closed.
like trains.
It destroyed
and
businesses and
buses.
everything.
Oh, it did destroy businesses. That's
more
a
than
sad one.
40% businesses were like closed.
Some of my friends closed, like who had like restaurants, they had to close them. They didn't survive COVID.
Well, because of fucking COVID, I lost my agency, but okay.
Sorry?
Like, whatever. Like, I liked COVID the way, because like you're distancing yourself from the information you're usually processing every day, and it's just like making your brain so light, so bright, so nice, so you can just think clearly, create new products, think about the future, develop finally something. That's why I think people developed so many products during this COVID.
They had more time for hobbies that they liked. They had more time. And then now there's like that, hey, we can do part of our jobs remote, and maybe we might start seeing a shift. While we saw a spike in mental health issues, I'd be curious to see the next few years down the line if we actually see a decline because more people are more in touch with their new hobbies that they have, or maybe get a little bit of time to like actually watch their kid on Mondays, Fridays, and go into the office the other days, or it's more easy to afford the babysitter. So interesting.
And I also think there is a shift in paradigm, if we already touched this topic, in treating humans not like robots, because I think the old paradigm was more about like, efficiency, and like when we talked about it today off camera regarding like productivity and like just you pack your calendar, pack your task list, because then you can't do it all because you don't have enough time, and you don't put time, like you also need to go to eat and drink water and go to the restroom, and like this also takes time. And I think we're shifting to a healthier paradigm, is that we're biomachines. We're not robots, but we're biomachines, and for biomachine to work you need to take care of like your body, and that means a lot of things, but also change in how we work, because we're not, if we're 8 hours at work, for example, we're not outputting 8 hours of like exactly same capacity of work every day. We're not in the factories anymore, and most of our works are like occupations are a bit more creative and so on. So
well, and when you were at home, you didn't have those human reactions, which causes issues, but you also didn't know when to close the laptop. Because sure, now I would justify, okay, I'm not commuting for this time, so now I get to be more productive, but then at the same time, maybe I'm grabbing snacks, so maybe I'm putting on weight because the gyms are closed, and then...
Gym at home.
Should we just reset away from COVID?
The last point I would like to say, because I've been like right now thinking
That's why I bought a bicycle, because I gym at home.
yeah.
And that's good for you. But think like this, like, if COVID pushed us to sit at home and think about our problems and about like healthcare, so it just pushed people to develop these apps where you can just like online call to a doctor because you're not able to go there. So it's probably gave us more opportunities just to explore what our issues are. Because you know that you should just not go somewhere for getting the appointment. You can just call, and that's cool. Because right now, even like Femtech from 2020, I think it was at the end of 2020 was a boom of Femtech industry. And the worldwide, in Europe, I don't know anything about US by the years, but I know like in 2023 it was the biggest like a market and investments into. So it was actually valued at over 28 billion in 2023 in the Femtech industry. And in 1 billion in 2022, and it's going to be 103 in 2030. So forecast is good for us. Let's build fucking businesses, baby.
Yes, those forecasts, I love them. Like, they're always
A healthy, happy wife, happy life. So we need this.
Who needs husband right now? I'm sorry.
100%. So, like, if we're already talking about Femtech, do you know anything about profitability of Femtech? How profitable is the business? Do you have any Femtech, companies in your portfolio? How is the scene for female-oriented products look like?
I mean, the market's certainly booming. I haven't looked too much into Femtech myself. I'm sorry, guys, female price followers.
No. So the market is, total global earnings of women is in 2014 is 18 trillion, 2020 is 24 trillion. And talking about GDPR in 2020 and here in the United States is going to be 22 trillion. So this is like kind of a lot. And I think market potential by 2025 is going to be more, as I said, like 100 and up to 100 billion by 2030. So can you just like imagine how much opportunities right now we do have to think not just about pregnancy or fertility, not just about like a general health or reproductive health or like non-longevity or like any of the sexual products, but also about something global, something about the ecology, about turtles, about sharks, about everything else, because we're a woman and we can create. Sorry. That was a small laptop. I was like, yay! Yeah, so talking about the Femtech, I think is a big digital revolution right now in women's health. So all the software, diagnostic product services that use technology to improve women's health is called female technology. That's what we need just to right now know about our vocabulary. And mostly right now is about reproductive health, fertility solutions, period and fertility tracking, at-home fertility monitoring. I think this is a genius thing. About at-home solutions where you can just get your ovulation test like before, but right now you can just have the blood test, fertility test, and everything at home. So you should not.
Yeah, this is, I think, one like next wave of Femtech is definitely will be, getting more access to the fertility, because right now the issue is that, like, for example, in the US, to get your insurance cover the fertility testing with your partner, for example, you have to be trying for a year, and then
from 6 months to a year of healthy, yeah.
And then after that, you should they can cover and have you an appointment to do that, which I think, like, the whole concept of that you need to go to a specific clinic, do specific stuff, like if you can have portion of that being done at home or like monitored on like more frequent basis as well, that is a big shift. Also in accessibility, because again, right now, to be very honest, only people like with a higher incomes and are like maybe higher middle class and higher are able to afford the freezing your eggs, for example, or like I don't know how it's called in English, but not natural baby making, but like
IVF.
I saw a stat the other day on this exact topic, and it was like most people who are using IVF services have to go through 2 cycles of it. So it's twice as long, it's twice as stressful, or maybe even more than that. So
it's going to be optimizing again and again. Like, I think right now is just the beginning. I know that even it's us being in Ukraine and not knowing anything about that, right? Like, it was like a trendy thing 2 years ago in US. Every school had this like posters about like, would you like to freeze your eggs? Would you like just to know more about your future fertility? They do have the whole chapters in the education behind, like, around it. It's like us being surprised that like at 30 we don't know what to do.
I told you my experience with contraception. Like I've mentioned it in the previous podcast, but it's like it's also varies from country to country. But I was 19 or 20 years old when I moved to UK, and I decided that I'm going to go and figure out the contraception for myself. And then we had like everyone called it like a sex center, but it actually was a clinic, for different sorts of stuff.
It wasn't a brothel or...
No. They were
but
just...
you have a million of everything.
Yeah, but this was really good because it was like a student... Like, this is actually fantastic. Sorry for off topic. There was a free clinic in the student city that provided emergency contraception, all sorts of contraceptions free. You can go and get checked, any STDs, anything, anything like that. So, which makes a lot of sense.
Did they work on the other side of it with any IVF? Have they started integrating some of that?
No, I think it was like more of a student-oriented rather than, family planning. But I wouldn't be certain because I haven't
looked at it.
I didn't need this, so I haven't asked. But about contraception, I came in and they told me all of the sorts of contraception. There is some things you can put in your arm. There is the coils, the different kind of oral contraception. There is some contraception that lasts for 3 weeks only. There's
and it's
shots.
not dangerous finally, because before it was a 2-phase oral contraception pill, and you have a lot of different shit after you choose it. In Ukraine, it was 7 years ago, I just remember. And you have this insomnia, you have a dizziness, you want to throw up, but you're drinking it because you don't have any other choice. I'm sensitive, I'm very sensitive to latex, but they invented non-latex condoms. But before I was using a lot of different shit, and right now we have such a lot of different choices. So again,
there's an interesting choice that's in the portfolio company. Oh gosh, I don't like that I'm mentioning this. There's a contraceptive that's being made for men right now that we have as a portfolio company. Oh
Good
man!
fucking time,
No, why did I do that? It's called Contraline, and it's essentially a gel that gets shot up there, and it stays almost like an IUD, and then it slowly disintegrates away after many years. But this would be putting the responsibility on men.
I like that. That's what I say, that the world is moving in the right direction.
I'm not going to touch it. I don't like putting things in my body.
Good for fucking you.
Yeah, okay, I'm selfish. But a part of what you were speaking about earlier and what I was trying to get at is super scary to me. It's that the price of IVF and the rapid decreasing in fertility rates, the average price going through these 2 cycles or whatever is between $40,000 and $60,000, and that is not affordable. And a lot of companies a lot of insurance companies might not back or pay for some of this stuff. So then I started thinking, well, what are we doing about the people that are already below the poverty line that have to live day to day? If they're being impacted by what they eat or their drinking water or whatever it is that's causing this large scale infertility rate and rapid decline, then are we wiping out some of the less fortunate naturally?
Infertility is a huge problem everywhere, as we both know. Because you're studying it, and then the whole knowledge about fertility and infertility, unfortunately, is not that... The studies are not that old, so you can just see the dynamic, but every 8 women in the United States is kind of 88? I think 8 women in the United States is infertile, and every 3rd couple gonna have some problems with fertility. I just don't remember the statistics because we've been doing presentation together.
You're in it deeper than I am. I'll trust your data on this.
I just tired today, so I don't remember stats. But the thing is, infertility is a big problem, and it just causes you a lot of struggles for just getting pregnant. So as far as you're gonna think about your fertility, you're gonna make the right choice for yourself. You're just a small advice from us all.
Yeah, it's a very challenging topic, and it's a very challenging choices. For women, and impact on your body and on your finance and on your health in general. So, but coming back to Femtech, I also want to mention that when it comes to the healthcare system, healthcare startups, only like it's been 15% in 2015, and it rose to 22% in 2022. That actually startups are being founded by female founders, or like co-founded by female founders. The overall statistics in tech that only 2% of startups are founded by female, like purely by female. But I think in healthcare, because we're seeing this boom on femtech, it's actually improved. As also we mentioned that the boom kind of happened during the COVID and after the COVID, and that's why like in 2002 we had more female founders going into that. But I'd love to also touch that there is a big issue that a lot of female products, they are linked to something sexual. So, for example, even like, the menstrual cycle tracking apps, they also have some information about sex or, ovulation, or when you have higher risk of getting pregnant, when the sex can hurt, when you have your ovulation, when you have the best mood for sex, and so on. And also I know girls like here in LA that do we talked about being toxic, some materials being toxic or some elements being toxic, so they do lubes and like sexual things that are specifically are not messing up with the female,
like toys, like sex toys.
No, not sex toys, mostly like lubes and lubricants. Yeah. And they specifically developed them, for example, because the issue with the lubricants that they could mess up with your microflora, and you can get some inflammations and very nasty things after that. Well, they have an issue again because if anything is slightly related to sex, and if we're talking about female products, a lot of them do, just because of the nature of female body, they at least touch this topic. They can't get funding for sex, like if it's anything even mildly related to sex, and they can't do advertising on Meta.
Well, you can do it in Meta, of course, because like Meta doesn't, like, there's a huge restriction, and that's based on some policy and some still edicts. And I'm grateful Meta for this, like, sincerely. And from other stuff, I think that Meta just like really working on their adaptation of like a different rules. For example, there's a right around like no negative connotations, no risk points, like no like this like discussions around some topics.
So I think
I
think it's a complex topic, but we talked about barriers for like startups to like deliver better products today, and I think one of the barriers from femtech is that there's restrictions for advertising. A lot of them without like differentiation, whether you advertise porn or you advertise an actual healthcare like wellness product for females. And as well, it's much harder to back it up by venture
now,
money.
in my opinion, there's all these regulations that shouldn't exist there. Like I have a very different opinion to you about the censorship thing, but
18 plus in censor would be always your best friend, I think. On
What?
social media.
18 plus?
Of course. Like
Okay,
all the blurred
that's a fair
content, all the content which is
maybe.
18 plus, you need just to actually understand that there's a lot of different moral codexes and a lot of different cultures. And all of these, which is interesting point, like America consists the most diverse community inside of America, and there's millions of people who are not accepting sex, and you need to respect their their rights too.
I disagree.
They can see an advertisement. It's their feelings shouldn't be hurt. If they want to go to a country or if they want to seclude themselves, they could even build a cult
minorities.
if they want.
I'm sorry. I know maybe I'm
I
minority
don't think
too, but
I don't think it's offensive to a minority. I mean, like
We're all adults.
they're
Like,
all different. Like
if you have a religion, you can respect that someone else likes to have sex casually or something, and that's
we
part
need
of
to
life,
have
especially in the
regulations.
U.S.
Maybe not all, maybe not that strict, but still
They're
we need
okay.
to have all of regulations right now. It
an
makes sense.
example. I will give you an example. Like, for example, I get sometimes an advertising from, like, how is this app called? Not the Green Chef, but
What is it
Kitchen
about?
Chef. So those apps where they deliver you like not meal kits but like products for and like recipes so you can cook for like Blue Apron and stuff. And sometimes there's like nice recipes and they're just juicy beef and stuff. And like if you're a vegetarian or vegan, should like the ad that does beef
like not
ad
appear
that
because then you're looking at a
advertise
dead
beef
cow
should
on the ad.
should it offend you? Like
Right? Like
so, or for example, sometimes I got an interesting advertising about some. I think in English it's called smack books, like books that are like sexual, like 50 Shades of Grey.
oh yeah, what is the term for that?
I think it's smack books. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but women love them.
Yeah, women love them. Like, but for example, I don't like.
Watching porn.
This is those are, and there's apps within audiobooks that do just that. They're super profitable.
Oh, and they probably get the ASMR and the voice down and everything.
Yes. But I've got like this. I got that ad on Instagram like one time. I'm not into it. And it's a little bit cringe for me, to be honest. I don't like, I think people have different tastes. This is not this is not my form of sexual content. I prefer something else. But it does not offend me, even if I don't like it or agree with it or something like that. So I think we need better, I don't think we need to show sex on ads, but I think we need better more nuanced regulations where it's not just ban all of it. Maybe there is a range between like sex, porn, and like female care products, for example. It's like it's a different range. And for example, like lubes that don't mess up with your systems is a female care product more than or like couple care product more than an explicit sexual product.
I would say next thing. So if it's really good product for the woman, they're gonna find the way of creating the positioning without mentioning sex.
But speaking of the large companies and regulation and data and everything like that, in the healthcare space, some of these mega companies have tried to kind of pivot in, right? So we have like Amazon with the cloud infrastructure, Microsoft with the enterprise solutions, and then Google, which is essentially saying, hey, we know everyone's data. Can we do something with this? But we don't necessarily know like if they're sick or what their medical expenses are because of regulation. Several years ago, Amazon, JP Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway saw an opportunity to kind of break into this market and disrupt the insurance companies. Because if you think about how hard those companies are to disrupt, I mean, you go to work for some place and you get handed whatever insurance company you want, or whatever they hand you. Sure, you can still go out and buy your own private insurance or whatever, but insurance is expensive. So,
and 28% in the United States doesn't have it.
28%, even though it's like a mandate under Obama?
That was sort of statistic for last year.
I'm interested because I think like Obama changed it with the medical, like I don't know sure if it's called everywhere, but in California.
It's like Medicaid and...
Yeah, Medicaid, but in California it's called medical. So if you have no income or low income, or you have a lot of dependencies on you, like kids or like elderly people, you can go and have a 100% free insurance, which is good. Like it's actually good. It's not bad at all. Like you get to be treated in like LA Care, and you can go to good hospitals.
And you get it taken care of.
So the thing is, it was in 2021, and right now is 8 and 4. They do not have a full VHS right now. Yes, yeah, it changed.
Which is a good thing.
Good thing. I'm just using old data. I'm like outdated a bit. Sorry.
No, I mean the data changes like all the time, and I think we talked a little bit earlier about things moving to the right direction. I think this being like having a free insurance if you need to, it's one of the really good things. And I think also one thing that a lot of people that come to the US not always know about this. So maybe there is an issue there. But I know Okay, it's a separate topic, but I know that when you come for you program for Ukraine, they kind of
medical.
Yeah, they give you medical.
Cool. They just set you up with it.
Yeah, they set you up.
Yeah, they're giving you, but before you need just to wait in line for 7 hours together with all other people who are moving here for a different reason, in a different way, not very legal. So you're staying there for 7 hours and waiting for your medical.
Well, there are
Depends on what you want.
I don't know.
There are a lot of issues with immigration in general, which we should not talk
about.
We're not talking about it.
I had a medical for some time as well when I haven't had an income here, and it took a couple of phone calls and just going to the place and filling it in, and then it just came by the mail, and that's it. Wasn't too bad at all.
Not my story though, but you wanted to say something.
Yeah,
right?
so getting back to these large companies and kind of, the insurance companies where it's like such a sticky business and hard to kind of penetrate. Well, Amazon, JP Morgan, and Berkshire Hathaway several years ago made this product called Haven, which was even these big players were trying to come together and leverage Amazon's cloud platform and all the data that these companies have to create an insurance company that would disrupt and kind of put some pressure and maybe develop better patient outcomes. But what we saw is this company was dissolved after 3 years. One of the big things was timing. There was COVID in the way. There were some perverse incentives. And then even though they had, I believe the number was 1.2 million employees, there was
1.2 million?
Let me fact check that. I think I might have wrote a bad note there.
I mean, like we talked about Meta. Meta has like 10,000,
Well, you guys can just read the Harvard Business Review on this kind of case study here of Haven.
We're here. They're not reading Harvard.
Okay. I'm like, go do the work.
No. Fact checked here and now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a company, like the CEO of the company of 1.2 million? I would be so, like with the gray hair and old in my 20s.
Yeah, when I looked at it.
Managing everything is
It's bigger than the population of Estonia. I think the population of Estonia is like million people.
Kinda, like I think it'd be less. No.
I don't know, it was like 900, but when it was 900, it was several years ago when I knew this fact.
So Harvard Business Review is saying, despite their 1.2 million employees, Haven's 3 constituent companies still didn't have enough market power.
So they had 1.2 million of employees with the company name?
Haven.
Maybe that means...
Yeah, I mean, the insurance companies just have such a large hold on the industry. But if you have players like Google with all this data, how can insurance companies, you mentioned this earlier, how can insurance companies potentially manipulate that data instead of use it for good? So, hey, you've had a few bad years of maybe being depressed, so we know that your immune system is going to be impacted by your depression as well. We're going to charge you more now. Mm-hmm. So how do we kind of balance out that? And I mean, we touched on decentralization of data here.
Yes, this is a very scary thing to me personally. I'm not, as we talked before, I wasn't thinking that much about data being stolen, but I was thinking a lot about how, if insurance companies has this data legally, for example, that they can manipulate things, and big companies can manipulate who they will hire or not based on some health risks or some health.
It is such a complication, and do we want this data because it means better outcomes, or are we concerned about this data being sold because we've seen with many other companies, they'll just manipulate you and we'll just become more manipulated and more submissive, and it's so hard to change these systems, and then you'll feel more lost and more powerless. So that's something that's really interesting from how is it going to play out?
To be honest, I think that one of the solutions is more distributed and decentralized insurance companies, insurances, for example, as every industry, from again my years of doing a lot of analytics and working through different industries, go through cycle of bundling and unbundling. So that happens to banks a lot. So they had to be unbundled because they couldn't have an same. So they couldn't have an investment bank and the consumer brand.
They were too large.
They were just too large and having too much power, and like it corrupted some of the services they've been providing. Same with happens within energy industry. So you have the production, distribution, and then like end user distribution where you pay to your electricity bills. So there was a big legislation, I think like nearly all the countries, but definitely European and the US, that the one company cannot have all three. They need to be distributed, or at least, even if it's like, they do it weird way, it's like one holding, but like different companies, but still, like, so there are like those companies that are vertically integrated or like that have accumulated too much power, then regulators are like, hey, let's like break it down now. So I think this is what should happen to not even medical industry, healthcare, but insurances, like break them down. Maybe some people need more personalized insurance for a specific, conditions they have, and then they're not paying like super high premium because they're like a risk group, but they go to a tailored insurance where can provide that. So I'm just thinking that this kind of distribution and decentralization could be helpful if we're talking about decreasing overall like consolidated power of an insurance.
But is it like any states right now decentralized and have decentralized insurance? I think there are some states like that, no?
I'll look it up. I don't know.
I think
it's
so.
such an interesting concept as like someone who's essentially a libertarian. Like, I don't love regulation, but I do in these cases. You have to have some checks and balances on the current capitalist system. And how do you do that correctly? Is it just going to be trial and error, or can we actually start leaving more things up to the voting of the people so that we know that we're going to have the most, just let the people decide. Let's vote on more things
decide without
here.
power behind them. That's why democracy is the best way to keep it together. What? If you do you know what
I don't want to go into that topic.
We're not going there, but the thing is, like, people need just to have some regulation. Like, you're not gonna feel safe on the street if there's gonna be no laws, no rules, no right. Like, you need to always have the system. It's like the core. It's like you do have your back, right? It's holding your body straight.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Hey, I don't believe in anarchy.
But let's not mix up laws and regulations, because those are slightly different things. And then let's also not talk about like regulation as an absolute thing. I don't like regulations the way they usually are, but I am definitely pro nuanced regulations where you have people from the industry, and like, because when the people like that do regulations sometimes are not the exact people who work in this specific industry day to day, or exact people who consume products of that industry day to day. So as long as you bring all the parties that, if we're talking about producing service of product, who do that, and then people who consume and produce those products and services, and regulators, and like also someone who gives money on that, and just kind of, that can create more nuanced way how we regulate things, especially like big things like healthcare. Yeah. But then I worked with regulators on some new stuff. This is nightmare because
they probably didn't understand it.
This is like they want to do it like safe for their ass, or like no one has like enough time or resource to make a nuanced thing. So this is kind of, I think, the issue, not about regulations having them or not having them. It's about how we have them.
How you do them
and
correctly.
How we do them
yes, how
correctly.
you do them the most ethically, because a lot of these politicians, they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to, let's talk like, I guess we're moving into AI, right? So this is a new technology. People are concerned about regulating it. And we're kind of at the forefronts, relatively speaking, of this technology and the use cases. And sure, we need to be ahead of the curve on some of these, but like you said, we need to not just leave it in the hands of the politicians, but also don't only leave it into the biggest stakeholders, because if you really want a big build a great moat around your company or around your technology or whatnot, then you're going to start speaking up actively, like what we're seeing with some of the big CEOs. I'm not going to name names. And they're going to have it their way. And then it becomes really hard. It becomes even harder to break through these regulatory moats for some of the small guys that are coming up trying to disrupt or trying to create a maybe better product for the end user.
We all can have the AI. I'm gonna just like tell you about AI playground I'm using, because you just like can create on some different bases and some different variations of ChatGPT for your own assistant for your needs. So you can just like put yourself into assistant, so you can have second you in the way for just having like a chill time with yourself. You can train everything, you can do everything. But the main thing connected it to the healthcare, I would like just to have a pool of the data with maybe no names, but just for like all the data what we can just collect from all the people around for analyzing the patterns and predicting the mental health conditions. That's what I would do personally.
I'm a data freak. I would love to have more data on essentially everything.
We all are.
Yeah.
But when it comes to data, it's like, it's so good in theory, but then, you know, we already discussed it many times, in whose hands is data? Like, are those people, like, or groups of people are...
Meta sold some of your information to Marta, by the way.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it's part of it. They need to sell that.
That's
that's a product. That's a data play.
No, all good. I'm under visa here for the second.
No, it's legal.
What?
Oh, nothing.
Some of this data.
Too much of data sometimes.
Yeah, so... No, working with data is fun. So, should we wrap up a little bit?
I would say, yeah, like... Talking about the healthcare is something where I can just like go deeper and deeper into every category of the healthcare, but I'm happy that we actually can have someone who can help us with the understanding of investments in the healthcare. So thank you so much for being here with us.
I was trying to get us back to it a little bit, guys, but at the end of the day, we're just friends talking. So
yeah.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that you guys have tuned in.
I hope it's going to be your favorite road podcast. Like for listening, and the best to watch.
So thank you so much for, Brennan, for just, giving your experiences and your knowledge on healthcare investments. And we had a lot of fun. And I kind of like that, we had some plan, but then, ideas kind of pop around. And
it was like improv.
And we touched
everything
on them,
like that.
So thank you for being with us, and
keep yourself healthy and happy, and just like be yourself.
And question everything. Look into things. Make decisions on your own too.
And freeze your ex if you're a woman.
Yeah, and use good lubes.